Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, depending on which time zone you're joining us from. And a warm welcome to each one of you. Thank you so much for taking your time to join this session. Yes, our topic for today is building your resume. And before we proceed, I would like to introduce our speaker for today, Ms. Ras Gohil. Ras is a highly accomplished veteran in the banking industry, boasting an impressive 36-year career marked by diverse leadership roles spanning commercial, banking, strategy, credit and risk management, and financial crime and compliance. Her many qualifications include certifications from the Lumina training programs emphasizing behavioral interaction and leadership skills. Also, RAS global experience extends across regions including the UK, Europe, the Middle East, Africa, Asia Pacific, and the Americas. Ras enjoyed a fruitful career at HSBC, where she held various management and leadership positions within its retail, commercial, and corporate banking divisions. Her primary base remained in London. And yes, without any further ado, I would like to hand over the session to Ms. Raz. Yes, it's over to you, Raz.
Thank you. Thank you, Soumya, for that introduction. And welcome, everybody. I know you're all from different time zones. So it's good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I hope you can see me. I hope you can hear me clearly. And I hope that you're able to talk when we have some of the questions. So I won't go any further. I think the introduction is fair. I do have a very, very broad spectrum of skill set. I was fortunate to have also worked abroad in China and Switzerland and South Africa, but that was only kind of but primarily I was in London. Anyway, I know that we only have an hour, and I appreciate that for some of you it's in the evening, so I want to start on it straight away. First and foremost, can you all see my screen?
Yes, Raz, it is visible.
Perfect. Okay, right. So I'm moving this and you can see. So just before we start, just get an idea from all of you. What are your thoughts on resumes? Why do you think we need them? So you can either put in the chat or you can come on audio. What value do we really place on them? And what value do you think the employers place on them?
Yes, the chat box is enabled for everyone, so you can
Yeah,
type in your opinion.
lovely to
Yeah.
And you can come on audio as well. Feel free to come in and chat. Not precise, okay. Experience in skill set, yep, Gorak, absolutely. Self-explanatory introduction to your skill sets, opportunity to sell yourself, absolutely, Mohammed. It is, you kind of hit the nail on the head. It is an opportunity to sell yourself, but it's how we sell ourselves. It's like one product doesn't work for everybody. Therefore, one standard resume doesn't work for everybody. Okay. So let's just move on, because I know that whilst we do that, the first impression creates. Deepika, yeah, absolutely. It is your first impression that creates an employer, and your self-branding. This is branding yourself. This is you. Okay. When you send a resume, what you're basically saying to them, that you want them to visualize you and your qualifications and what you're capable of. Okay. And while we go through this webinar, I'm going to try and give you some hints and tips and obviously guidance on what really works well, what you shouldn't do as well, because we often get taken, oh, we do this, we'll put everything in, right? It's not putting everything in. So let's just look at a quick, seminar agenda. We've done the introductions. Obviously, I can see some of you that are in the chat. That's great. What do we really mean by a resume? So, a lot of it now, there's different words. Okay. Some of us call it resume and some of us call it a CV. In the UK, in Europe, it's they call it a CV, a curriculum vitae. in some, well, in the US, in Asia Pacific, India, etc. And, throughout, it's called a resume. Now, some people say it's just a different word. It is, and it isn't. So whilst the resume will emphasize skills, it should not be any more than 2 pages, right? As a resume should not be no more than 2 pages. And normally it kind of gives you all the industry experience. A CV actually emphasizes more of your accomplishments, right? It goes in through your academia, and the way that it's set out is slightly different. But the one thing about CVs versus resume is they often say for a CV shouldn't be more than 1.5 pages maximum. Now, that is an idea, that's a guide. So don't think, oh, right, I can't do more than that. If you think of my CV, bearing in mind I've been in the financial services industry 36 plus years, some of the things that are old, I don't go into detail, but it's just there just so that they know what my past history is. So you don't want to put everything in it. But the longer you've been doing the job, the more you'll have to say. And it's how do you choose, as my next point, what needs to be included, what needs to be excluded. Okay. And we'll also talk about writing style. So how do you write your CV? Those that are, you can write it, most people write it professionally, but sometimes you'll find that odd little bit that comes in and it's colloquial, right? It becomes, and what I mean by that is you write it as you speak. And that's not how, what we speak is very different to how we write it. I'm sure you all know that. So, feel free to say, Raz, yeah, we know what that's about. By the way, what I did want to say is if you do have any questions, please just put it in the chat or come on audio and I'll answer it. So keep an eye on the chat as well. I think unless I hear from you, I'll move on to make sure that, there's nothing that you've got. So if you have a question or you're okay for me to move on, I'll move on. But if you don't, I don't know if you can put your hand up because I can't see you all, but maybe you can just put in the chat and say you have a question. So moving on, the key principles. So what is the key principles here? Questions I've got as a whole. Is it your entire bio? So question to all of you. Type in the chat, yes or no. Is it your entire bio? Is that what your resume is? Yes or no? No, absolutely not. Thank you, Gorak. Thank you, Divya. Thank you, all of you. If I don't say your name, please don't mean I haven't read it. I am, so please forgive me. But thank you, Mohammed, Abama, Yogini. Is it just your career history? Exactly, no. Is it about your education and qualifications? No. And I've said here, is it about your other interests, hobbies, and relevant information? How relevant do you think your hobbies and other relevant information is to your CV? Gorak, I don't know if that's a response to that. Are you saying that it's not right? So Mohammed, you don't think that hobbies and interests are relevant? Okay. Anybody else? No relevance, says Divya. Anybody else? Anybody think that it is relevant? Right, Praveen, you think it's not relevant? Thank you, Yogini. Whilst a lot of you have said it's not relevant, I would debate that and say there are some important things in your hobbies and interest that will have an impact on your resume. So yes, Yogini, there are relevances, okay? Because when we look at a resume, we look at what's written and it tells you all your academic qualifications, your career history, what you've done, what you've studied. Great. But does it actually tell you what you are as a person? It tells you how qualified you are. It says how good you are. It tells you how all the jobs you've done. It tells you in terms of everything that you can do, your skill set. But it doesn't tell you what you are as a person. And that's why I believe that your hobbies and interest is important. What you put in there is what we need to understand. And do you only have to put hobbies and interests relevant to the job? So I'm not going to pick on anybody here, but anybody, do you think on the basis of what Yogini said and what I've just said, do you think you should put only the hobbies and interests that are relevant to the job? No. Okay, so Mohammed says absolutely. Prema says no. Deepika says no, don't think so. Aparna says yes. So we've got a mix of responses here. Now, there's kind of a two-way answer. It doesn't matter what the job you're applying for. What you're trying to get across in your hobbies and interests is what you are as a person. So whilst I believe that you do need to put things in there, it doesn't have to be relevant to the job, right? It doesn't matter if it's not associated to the role that you're applying for. They need to see you as a person. So whilst your qualifications are there, what about you as a person? I often say a qualification, it's important, but it's a piece of paper saying that you've been able to pass an exam, read, learn, pass an exam. Doing the job is a completely different thing. And this is where this hobbies and interest bit here is important, because it tells the person what you are. What do you enjoy doing? What do you like? What's your preferences? What don't you do? In the UK, it's a known thing that we often put full clean driving license. It never used to be. This came up about 15 years ago. So even though it's not recent, it was like, people say, well, do you have a full clean driving license? Why do people need to know whether you drive or not? Because you can use public transport. But the point is, what they're trying to get across is, do you have that flexibility if there are concerns about travel? So all these little things matter in your hobby, right? Need to be honest. Absolutely, Divya. What if a recruiter wants an extrovert, but my hobbies show an introvert? Mohammed, that's a very good question. How would your hobbies be shown as an introvert, though? Give me an example of what you think is an introverted hobby. Because I don't think the hobbies can kind of explain whether you're an extrovert or introvert. I know where you're coming from, Mohammed. Absolutely. Because you probably think you're an extrovert if you enjoy Formula One, right? I love Formula One. But you're an introvert if you do reading. Is that what you're saying? Okay, right. You love reading and you don't like traveling. That doesn't mean you're an introvert. You love reading but from that reading, you might be learning different knowledge. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So, you might be learning different knowledge from that reading. It doesn't make you an introvert. It actually shows me that you have got other skills, and that that whilst you've got your academic qualifications and you're good at your job, you are also one of these ones that likes to read and broaden your experience or your knowledge generally. That doesn't tell me you're an introvert at all. It doesn't tell me that you're an extrovert, but it doesn't tell me you're an introvert. So I love Formula One. I love a lot of sports, but I love reading. I enjoy cooking. That's at home. That's not an extrovert thing. So I don't think there's an introvert extrovert. So don't worry about things like that. Not important. But I do think it's important to put your hobbies and interests down. It gives you a well-rounded individual, because when I used to do a lot of recruiting when I was at HSBC, and they've put all their qualifications down in this CV or in this resume, and you think, oh, great, and a little bit, yeah, they know how to do this job. Great, they've achieved this. Great. Then I look at their hobbies and thinking, they can do this, they do this, they enjoy that. I want them in my team, even if they don't have all the skill set. I want them in my team because they will bring something to the team that the rest of my team don't have. So don't feel that just because everything that you've got in your resume is all academia and skill set, that you're definitely going to get the job. Right. So this is what I'm trying to get across here, just to digress a little. At schools and universities especially, the days of when your A star in the UK, A star plus is the highest qualification you can get. And, there are people that have had 7, 8 A star pluses, but all they do is that. That's all they've got. They don't have any sporting hobbies, or they don't have any interests and what have you. And you know what? Those are the people that the universities are now no longer looking for. They don't want people that just got A star pluses all the time. They want an all well-rounded someone that enjoys sports, enjoys acting, enjoys anything, any other hobby. So use that as an example to think, yeah, these are my qualifications. This is my skill set. But guess what? I also love doing this. And that goes at the bottom of your resume. It's not the beginning, it's at the bottom. Your beginning is your profile. This is me. This is what I do. This is what I'm about. Then you go into your resume. Okay. Is everybody okay with that? I know I've digressed a little, but is everybody, is there anybody got any questions before I move on to the next slide? You have a question? Okay, so usually we don't add hobby to avoid make it lengthy. My hardly people have a candid conversation about my hobbies. Hardly people had a kind. All right, so you're saying that your hobbies haven't added any value to your CV. Is that correct? Have I understood that right? Right. Okay. Fine. That is. I think it depends on the recruiter, and it depends on the jurisdiction. So, let's say you were UK, Europe, that would be talked about. And in an interview they talk about. Maybe in Asia Pacific, maybe in the Middle East, it's not talked about. So also think about the jurisdiction. But I would be surprised when I've interviewed, I always look at that. Maybe it's my experience within the UK, but I always look at the hobbies. Okay, Gorak, nobody's asked you for hobbies in an Indian company. That's interesting. I now am a consultant, and when I have trained for agencies, when I've sent my bio off and in my bio, I've also put my hobbies, they've questioned me about what I like about it. What do I enjoy about Formula One? What do I enjoy about theatre? So I think, like I said, Gorak, it's a very good point. Maybe in the Indian, in the Asia Pacific world, or Asia as a whole, India, they may not ask it. But if you're applying for roles outside, I would put it in. Just put it. It doesn't have to be loads. It's just maybe one line, 2 lines. This is my hobbies. You'd be surprised, because if you don't put it in, they're not going to ask you. If you put it in, they don't ask you, great, but somebody might. And you might find that you have that affinity with someone, that someone might enjoy it, and it brings up a really good conversation. So, you might enjoy going to the movies, and you put, enjoy theatre or enjoy movies. And then the person that's recruiting you notices, oh, well, I enjoy that too. I'm using that as an example. I've had that. So I'm using it as an example. And they say, and then you end up talking and you build that rapport, because in an interview, the way to get that is to build that rapport. And you need to start building that rapport on your resume before you get to the interview stage. Right. So Mohammed, you do get asked what you do outside work. So do you see the difference, Gorak? It is probably, jurisdictional specific. But whatever the case is, what if the hobby violates the norms? Oh my God, Emmanuel. I'm not sure I'd put that in. You probably wouldn't want to put that in. You might want to word it differently, recreational, whatever. You might want to, but I wouldn't obviously use words like that. Be careful on your choice of hobbies. But Mohammed, absolutely, they do ask you, what do you do outside work? and all of that. Now let me move on because I'm conscious of time. Please do let the questions come in. Okay, she says, desperately trying to now. Right, so the layout, how long should it be? I've already mentioned the fact that I wouldn't go more than 2 pages maximum. Okay, it has to be, but also think about this. If you've only been working or in a job for a short period of time, you should not even be 2 pages, right? It should be 1 or 1.5, maximum 1.5. So the length of your resume kind of should reflect how long you've been in the industry, whatever, or the job you're in, or the sector that you're in. So if you're banking and financial, then how long have you been in that industry? Is that okay? Does everybody understand that? Any questions on the length? You're okay. How should it be presented? Now, the one thing, there are different formats and there are different styles. So sometimes people like to use all these fancy fonts, and we'll talk about fonts just later on, but just use a clean, professional format, right? It's easy to read. I often say that the fonts that should be used are like, I don't know if you know them, Arial, Calibri, Times New Roman, those ones that are easy to read, but they're the best things. Now, there is a difference of opinion. 2 pages, we include all experience. Yes, absolutely, Gorak. The 2 pages should be absolutely everything. Nothing, you shouldn't go more than 2 pages. That includes your hobbies and everything else, and your profile at the top. Now, contact information. Some resumes, and I've been helping a few people, funnily enough, from India, who've been sending me their resumes, because I do a lot of mentoring as well. And they've sent me their resumes and they've put all these details on the information, contact information. You do not need to go into every single detail. It should be your name, your mobile number, your email address, your LinkedIn profile, and that should be the top of the page. You don't need to put your home address. You don't need to put your date of birth. You don't need all of that anymore. Compliance regulations state you don't need that. So when I have been helping a few of these mentees that I have in India, various parts of India, they said, oh, the employer asks for it. I said, no, I don't think it does. It doesn't. It's a compliance, no longer a regulation where you have to put your address in, because now of confidentiality and all the compliance regulations, you don't need all of that. Everybody can be contacted via phone or on an email address. My resumes as my works material, a bit long, how to fit everything in. We can talk about that, Pratik, if you want to take it offline. We can condense it. There are ways of condensing how to put everything into 2 pages max. We had our project detail, then it's difficult. There's again, Rakesh, there are ways of putting it into a profile, because what you probably do is when you're writing it, you're writing whole reams of sentences and paragraphs, correct? No, Deepika, I wouldn't put a photograph in. That's my personal thing. We don't normally do that, but it's having it's a personal choice, but I wouldn't recommend it because it takes up space, and you want them to see you and visualize you from what you've written. Okay, so it's not really required, no. But let me just ask a question. You probably write paragraphs. You don't need to write paragraphs all the time. Your current role should have the most detail. And the way you split it is what your key responsibilities are, 2, 3 bullet points, however many, and your key achievements you've achieved today. And you do that, present that all the way through. But as you go further up in your job, the previous jobs are being more and more dated, you only need to do 1 and 2 liners. So your project that you talk about, you don't need to go into the detail. It's project X, delivery and responsibility was X, achievement Y. And I'm simplifying it, but you obviously need to put a lot more words into that. But you don't need to write a whole chapter and verse. You just can bullet point it. They just want to see what you're capable of, what you've achieved, what was your responsibility, what you've achieved. Right. So suppose one has 15 years across 4 different roles. So 1 or 2 liners about a work should absolutely more about day-to-day. Yes, but when we talk about the day-to-day work as well, you don't want to put everything that you do. You want to combine it into, you know, 1 or 2 sentences. My current role entails project management of several people. Look at, making sure milestones are met, something along those lines. But you can put commas and use your my God, grammatical words and verbs so that you can use those as describing rather than having to go so much. Jagdish, you say, 15 years and you've got 4 different organizations. I've got 36 years and I've worked in God knows how many organizations since I left. It's how do you combine it? Okay. And what we need to do is look at, and maybe we need to speak to KnowledgeHut again, see if I can, put it as an example to say, right, these are the kind of things we need to show you, the kind of things you need to do. Suppose if you have a gap, so we need to mention that in the resume. You can, but that can be one-liner, right? So if you've had a gap, you've decided that you've taken time off, it just needs to be one-liner, 2012 to 2013 gap year, or 2012 to 2013. I don't know, maybe you've taken a maternity leave, or maybe you've taken time off to look after your parents. So just say family leave or person, and that's it. Don't try to elaborate on that. The idea of a resume, as we say, and I hope you understand the terminology, is you're dipping the water, dipping your toe in the water. What that resume is doing is that you want the resume is just like dangling the carrot. You want the recruiter to think, I want to know this person more. You don't need to tell them everything. That's sometimes what people get hung up on, thinking, I've got to tell them everything so they know everything about me. No. Just talk about the high level stuff that gets them excited and interested in you. That then comes into an interview. That's when you then express yourself and say, that's how it is. So it's a two kind of pronged process. The resume is just a little bit of a get to know me, and then the interview comes in and say, this is me. Okay, does that help? So I think we've, like I said, just laid out, as I've said. Question to all of you: what do you think makes it more impactful? What makes a resume more impactful? So, am I okay for time? Thank you. Experience and skill set, absolutely. What else? Absolutely, Patricia. Measurable impact, life skills, when it matches the JD. Yes, everything that you've all said. So that's great. And when I say, I think you said measurable impact, Patricia, make sure that you quantify your achievements. Yeah, exactly, Marina. Impact you made on the business percentage. So, when you say something like, for example, I overachieved on my objective of I had to get, I don't know, whatever, and I overachieved on this. I was, I don't know, one of the top 10, finished one of the top 10 relationship managers, let's say. That's not quantifying it. What you need to say is that target objective was 10%. I achieved 20%. Top 10, I was number 3 in the country in this particular role. So quantify everything. That's what they want to hear. And that's what they want to read. They don't want to say, yeah, you've overachieved. What does overachieve mean? What does, okay, I was in the top 10. You might be the number 10 of top 10. You want to show them that you're number 1, 2, or 3, maybe, or top 5. So it's making sure that you quantify it. And I think, what was it, matches the JD. Sorry, is that Manjunatha? Forgive me if I say your name wrong, please forgive me. But Manjunatha, you said, the JD, tailor it. match it to use the keywords and the buzzwords that they're using. So when you look at a job interview, look at the buzzwords and highlight them, and use those same buzzwords in your resume when you tailor it, because that's what they'll do. They tick the buzzwords that they've put in that you've measured, that you've matched. Okay. Make sure, I say, the content is relevant. So I think I don't need to kind of elaborate on this. This is more about making sure that you, whilst you're tailoring it, don't also just forget that I've done all of this. Put that somewhere, even if it's at the bottom. By the way, whilst I've now in project management, I used to be events manager, right? Something like that, that at the bottom, because what that shows is, so you're flexible in terms of your job role. You're now a project manager, but you've also done event management. We need someone with more, with that wide skill set. Does the resume template matter? Jagdish, when you say resume template, as in the format, the way it's set out? Yes, it does matter. So how you set it out, and we'll talk about that in a minute in terms of all of the way you use your template. Make sure that you go through it and all the formatting is correct. So if you're going to use a template, there are different templates to be used. So when you look at a job interview, look at the way they're asking what they want from that person and set the template out in that manner. So you always start with your details at the top. Then you do your profile, right? Your summary. That impactful one paragraph that says who you are. I'm enthusiastic, tenacious individual, able to work under own initiative and as a team. So, as a team player, something along those lines. That's your profile. That's who you are. Then you start. Now, if they are saying we want bang, 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 you set it out in like that. But if they turn around and say, we're interested in this, your template can be changed where you've got all your skill set on the right-hand side and the rest of your information is here. All right. So you've got template that explains your jobs. By the way, these are all my skill sets. So you might say Microsoft, Excel, project, what's the MS project and stuff like that. That can be on your side. Sometimes you put your jurisdictional, so your global footprint on the side. So this is where I've worked, and your main body goes up. Other times it goes within the main body. So it'll reflect how they've given the job, how they've requested that job interview, job advert. So look at that if that helps. Patricia, you said, where can I put it? Are you talking about the difference in jobs, or what was it? Okay, hold on. You mentioned mentioning what you did before and what you're doing now. Where does that come in? Other relevant information. Yes, absolutely. So what you've done before comes in that. So I always, when my CV is 2.5 pages, because for I've done. And would you believe, whether you agree or not, 6 lines of it, 7 lines of it is my hobbies, interests, and other relevant information. Because whilst I am in the banking and financial industry, I actually outside do a lot of charity work. I feed the homeless once a week. So obviously I do a lot of cooking. I love reading. I love theatre. I play a lot of sports. I played badminton at Olympic standard level. That's got nothing to do with my financial background, my banking services, but it tells them as a person, wow, this person is, I'm not saying wow as in about me, I'm just saying this is banking and financial services, but this individual has got all this as well. That's the kind of person that they look at how people will interact with the team. So they're not just taking you on for the job role, they're taking you on how you're going to fit into the team that they are managing as well. So think of all of that. So I hope that answers your question, Mohammed. Right now, it's all about AI. Oh, yeah, don't I know it? What needs to be added to create it? I even tried adding key scales or keywords that were required. Okay, Oprah, now what we're also going to talk about here is, have you come across video resumes yet? Patricia, before you answer that question, Patricia, where would you talk about events management? So if you've not done events management for a while, and you've gone, let's say you've done for the last 5 years, you've done project management and you've done different project management roles, your events manager should be in roles previously or roles between 2013 and 2020. And in that, you can just list your roles. You don't have to put in what that job entailed. You just said, project manager, events manager, I don't know, PA, whatever. And that goes in that part. I hope that helps. Arpana, right. You said about AI. Yes, it is. It's a big thing at the moment. But have any of you heard about video resumes? Have you come across video resumes yet? Yes, you have. Right. So, okay, Gorak, you haven't. There's a lot of people now, and recruiters are doing this. They want you to present a video resume, right? They want to do a Zoom, and it's a recording of your resume. So when we talk about AI, Aparna, whilst the AI is very much about the written context or the written text, the video can help you overcome that AI. AI, as we know, is robotic, monotonous. It's this. Your way of overcoming AI is the video resumes, which are this, because you're showing body language, you're presenting yourself, your facial features is what they'll see. So, if you're passionate about something, it'll show in your face because you really get excited. If you're not, something you don't like, they'll know because you think, right, yeah, I did that. I didn't really enjoy that job, but I did it because I wanted to get the skill set, right? Do you see how my tone has lowered on a job that I probably didn't really enjoy? But when I get excited, my voice raises. So in a video resume, that's the kind of things you would need to do, right? So that's when the way you can overcome the AI issues. AI is here to stay. We all know, universities, they can't do anything. And there are people, I say cheating. I don't know if it's classed as cheating. They're getting their essays done. Their dissertations are done by Chat GPT, right? It shouldn't have an impact. But I would say engage it, grasp it, use the AI to make your resume even better, right? Use the kind of buzzwords that you think the AI uses for your resume, because that's the world. What if the company doesn't give an option to record the video, but only apply via resume? Then sorry, Oprah, I hope I've just answered the question. Use the AI to your advantage. Okay, use the buzzwords that they use. Now, remember, those of you that have used, I think, Bard and ChatGPT and all the other ones that are out there, I'm very much, because I teach people how to write credit reports as well, I'm very much not anti-AI, but I say to them, you have to understand it here. Because if you don't understand it here in an interview, you're going to fail. So AI will use all these fancy words and put it for you, but if you don't understand them, when you go to an interview, you're going to fail. So whilst AI is there, use it, what's the word I'm looking for? Sparsely. Use it so that it's there to guide you. But what it can do is certain words that the AI uses, grasp them and turn it around to the way that you understand it and put it into your resume. Bring your resume alive like it's a video. So the words that you use in your resume, like I said, don't let it be a boring essay. Put punchy bullet points in, because those punchy bullet points is what's going to get you that across. It brings it alive. So visualize your resume, bringing it to life. Does that help, Oprah? I can obviously elaborate more, but I'm conscious of time. Right, included. We'll skim through this because we don't want to miss the time. But what needs to be included? Fact and truth. The points discussion we just now, does it mean we have to create different resumes for every different? Yes, Gaurang, you might need to. You have a basic, let me just answer that question before we do this. So Gaurang, what happens? Have your baseline resume, your foundational basic stuff in there. Look at the job interview and where it is. Now, I say that, so the reason I say that is sometimes, now I'm from the UK, so I write British English. But there are times when if you are applying, I think from memory, if my memory serves me right, in India, you use American English. I may be wrong, but correct me if I'm wrong. The America, Canada, it's all kind of Canadian American English. So tailor it. Use the way they write it, because that gets picked up. And the reason I say that is when a resume, it all goes through a system. And we're going to talk about that in a minute, the ATS system. Your resumes go through a system. If it picks up a word that it doesn't recognize because it's spelt wrong, you'll see your resume gets kicked out. Can be kicked out, not automatically, it can be. So it's key that where is the organization, where is that job that you're applying for? Because it's not a spelling mistake, it's just different writing. In the UK, if I was to write the word analyze, I use S, A-N-A-L-Y-S-E. In the UK, it's Z or Z as they use it. So if I use an S, are they going to say that's a spelling mistake? Well, no, it's not. It's the way I've done it. So think of those little things, thinking, oh, where am I applying? Which jurisdiction am I applying? And make sure that the language, that the English that you use resonates and actually reflects the country. Does that help? You don't have to write millions of CVs, Gaurang, just one basic and adapt it. Does that help? Okay, right. What needs to be included, excluded? It's basic information, fact, truth. Include fact. Do not lie on your CV. Do not elaborate the truth, because you will get caught out. Believe me, right? Even if you get the job, you get caught out doing it. So please, what you don't need is family information and anything archaic. And when I say archaic, it's like 20, 30 years old. All right. You don't need some of that information. Is everybody okay with that? Before I move on. Right. So the fundamental elements, and I'm going to do this as all of it together. The fundamentals, the format, the structure, the layout. Right. So fundamental elements, your contact information, we've said needs to be in there. Make sure that in there you've got your LinkedIn profile, right? Your URL for LinkedIn. And I would imagine that most of you have got a LinkedIn profile. That is the business social media. Use it. It is very, very powerful. Okay. So use that and put that as one of the links that goes at the top of your contact information, right? Name, email address, mobile number, LinkedIn profile, URL. Your education. Now, sometimes the education's at the top. Other times the education is further down. There is no right or wrong. It all depends on how you want to format it. So as I think, I don't know if it was Gaurang that asked the question about how the format, was it format? I can't remember. I'm trying to, forgive me if I've referred to different wrong person, but the format, some of the format, if the job description says qualifications required at the top of that job advert, then put your qualifications at the top. If it gives you the whole job description, what they want you to do and the skill set, and they say essential qualifications required at the bottom, then put your qualifications at near the end of your resume. Okay. So as I say, and I say, Gaurang, you don't need loads of CVs. It's just have one and adapt it, but reflect the job advert, not just tailor it, reflect how they've written it. Right. Some people just want the qualifications. Some of the jobs, IT jobs, they just want everything to do with, all the IT qualifications. They want that at the top, and they'll talk about the skill sets later. And some of them, the hobbies, because everybody's like IT, but the hobbies are important, funnily enough, in that. Is that okay? The layout, I think it all kind of works together in terms of how you structure it. If you have one structure and one layout, don't change it halfway through. So if you are doing, so the way I would say is that you do, you providing any format? I won't. No, I won't be. I have not been asked to provide a format, Gorak. I can always discuss it if we need to. But if, let's say, you've started with your profile, and then you've put the job title, the year, the location, and the organization, right? You've got the top, and then you put the bullet points, and then you do that for all your jobs. Don't then change it and start doing a different format and say, right, oh, by the way, and my skill sets are these. So stick to the one format. And there are lots of templates online. Okay, don't get me wrong. There's loads of templates that you can choose. Just look at the format that you feel comfortable with. So be careful. Don't just think, oh, I'll just use this template because it looks good. Make sure you can manage it, because any little errors and mistakes will come out if you're not comfortable with that format. Customize it. As I've said, the one thing I am going to say is aesthetic appeal. What do you think I mean by aesthetic appeal? I'll answer your question in a minute, Shriram. What do you think I mean by aesthetic appeal? I kind of covered it earlier on. Yes, Patricia, it's got to look clean. What else? So if you're look and feel, yes, exactly. The look and feel, Bremer. Is it Bremer? Bremer. Let's say you're putting a title, job role, organization, how long you've been there, and location. So it could be London, it could be Bangalore, it could be Canada, wherever, right? Bold it. So show that, make it highlight. Don't highlight things, by the way, sorry. Don't highlight. You can bold it and underline it. You may choose to use different colors. No harm in that, but make it professional, right? Keep it professional. Don't make it so weird, if I can say, oh, different colors for different things. No. So you might bold it. You might choose to have the title in blue, bold, and then the rest of your format's in black normal. Okay, unbolded. Don't italicize anything unless you're trying to make a point. So if you're trying to make a point about something, italicize that word or 2 or 3 words. Don't put anything in inverted commas, okay? Because what this is factual information. So don't make it colloquial. Sometimes, now we talked about photos in there, but we wouldn't say, I wouldn't put photos, that's personal opinion, you can. What some people do is, instead of having, and this is a format that I got sent as a resume for one of the jobs. And what they did was they'd put their details on top, they'd put their profile. All of a sudden, I had a bubble on one corner, and it told me the skill set. The other bubble, it told me their hobbies. Another bubble, and I was like, oh my God, what is this? Why? What are they trying to, why can't I just read the text? But that was my opinion. But when we actually looked at it, the person was from a marketing background. So what he did was actually make it visual in a marketing background. Now, the role that we wanted wasn't marketing. It was more to do with IT. But the fact that he was different, that it's, right, we get it. His background is marketing. So he's kind of put this in a bubble here, this in a bubble here. And it made us think, oh, really look at that resume to make it aesthetically different. I'm not saying you should do this all the time. I'm simply saying it's an option, but remember how your job application, what's the job advert say? How is that being presented? And there is no harm in asking someone from there to say, do you have a preferred format? Right? Because people don't think, oh, we can't ask the question. If we ask the question, they're going to think we're stupid. No, you're not. You can ask the question, how would you prefer the format? Would you be open to diagrams and pictures? And some of them say, absolutely. Others will say, no, can we keep it to text? That way you know where you stand. Yes, it is, Shriram, about showcasing achievements. You asked me a question before as well, Shrima. Is a cover letter mandatory? They'll let you know. If they, most senior jobs will ask for a cover letter, and make sure that it's, again, the way you structure that format, that cover letter is reflection of the job advert. And that cover letter is basically saying why you think they should give you the job. That's what that cover letter is. It's not about repeating everything that's on your CV, on your resume. Don't repeat what's on your resume in your cover letter. What your cover letter should say, this is why I think you should pick me. Right? And it's everything else outside of your resume. Does that help, by the way? Shriram, does that understand? Okay, all right. But they will tell you if they want a cover letter. If they don't want one, if you feel that you think, oh, I need to explain a bit more, then do it, because your resume has got, is long enough. Then put it into your cover letter. But 9 times out of 10, senior roles, you do end up having to have a cover letter, and the cover letter should be no more than a page. Right? They're not going to read. They don't want to read a whole essay. Okay. Explain difference between cover letter and CV. Sorry, CV is a resume, is another version of a resume. Cover letter. So sorry if I use the word CV, I meant to say resume. A cover letter is probably one page that's got several paragraphs explaining why you are the right person for that job, what skills and qualifications that you think can add value to that organization, to the team, to whatever, and also how you as a person can be valued. So that's what the cover letter is. A CV is just is a resume, but it's just different terminology in different parts of the world. Is that okay? Prema, does that help? I'm conscious of time, so forgive me if we are going to fall a little bit. Okay, right. Content optimization. Again, I think some of this you already know, but feel free to ask questions. This is about tailoring your resume. I think Gaurang asked the question before. Tailor it. You don't need to have hundreds and hundreds of CVs, resumes. Just tailor it. And sometimes it's just a little bit of top and tail. Other times it may be wholesale changes because it doesn't meet the job description. Specific content to match the role or the industry. I think it speaks for itself. Highlighting all your relevant skills and experiences and your achievements. Now, the one thing I want to ask you, when you put your achievements in, do you just put achievements that are to do with your work when you put your achievements in a resume? No. Right. Brilliant. What kind of other achievements do you put in, Prema or Prerna? What should you be putting in there as well? Yeah, absolutely. What else? You can put academic. Academic will be in there. The only reason you'd put academic in there is if it's not related to your role. So, for example, if I'm corporate banking manager, I wouldn't necessarily be doing any of the project management courses like was it Prince 2 or any of that. But I can put that in to say I'm a qualified Prince 2 project management qualification. Nothing to do with your job, but it shows that you've got some other. Yeah. We can have some relevance to the work field. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So remember, your achievements are not just the skill set, not just what you've achieved in that job or the previous jobs. It's everything else as well that you might have achieved, right? You might have, I don't know, run the marathon in the UK, or you might have run the marathon in the US or whatever. That goes down as an achievement. How many people do we know that can run the marathon that much? That's an achievement. You might have played for, your country in Olympics. That's an achievement. So all of those is important, okay, in content optimization. Right, again, carrying on with this, key buzzwords. One question is out of context. How many projects we can mention at the max? If they're all related, Brenna, you can just mention that you've had these different responsibilities in the project. But if there are specific different projects, then you need to mention and just say, so I'm just using words here. You could say project buzzwords, responsibility, achievements, project phrases, responsibility. So it's different projects if they're not connected. There is no maximum, providing they are relevant to the role. Okay. Unless, of course, it's something that you've done off chance, nothing to do with the role, then it goes in your hobbies and other relevant information. Because that's something you've achieved. That's why I say the hobbies, interest and relevant information is important, because that's saying, okay, so you've done this other project as well. Not connected to your day-to-day job, but okay. The ATA, the applicant tracking system. I'm not sure if you know how this works. What happens is your CV goes through a whole, electronic system. That's what happens 9 times out of 10. Some may just give a paper CV and it goes right to the head and they say, yeah, because you've been recommended or what have you. But 9 times out of 10, it goes through an ATS. And this is where I talk about buzzwords. This is where I talk about spelling mistakes. This is where I talk about everything, because it's not the person that will kick it out. It's the system that will kick it out. All right. So make sure that everything on your resume is absolutely spot on, perfect, no spelling mistakes. Where is that resume going? Is it going to the US? Do I need to use American English? Is it in the UK? Do I need to use British English? Is it, I think Asia Pacific, it's not a case of, it's just spellings. So make sure it all adds up. And the ATS will also think if something doesn't make sense. If you've said, I've worked for this organization from this year to this year, and then you've overlapped, it's going to say, well, hold on a minute. You've just said you've been working for that job. And remember, the system it's not judgmental. It's just purely, objective. It's just subjective to the information that's put in. So just be aware of that. Visibility to the recruiters, right? So this is when you're on LinkedIn. People put LinkedIn and use LinkedIn maybe just to put a like in. Oh, I like that. I like that. What also helps is if you're applying for a job is if you read something in the news that's a relevant topic to a role that you're doing or a role generally within your industry sector, post it. Because remember, not everybody's linked into you. Your LinkedIn followers or LinkedIn people that are kind of associated to you may not be the ones that are associated to where that particular LinkedIn post was done. So repost a linked LinkedIn, message that's come through. And sometimes be aware that, oh, I like that phrase, or I agree with that, or I disagree with that. However, let me just kind of just give you that little bit to say, be careful what you like and dislike. You don't want to be seen like you might, I don't know. One thing that the key thing I would say, stay away, absolutely stay away from commenting is political, right? Do not comment on anything political, because that just gets you into trouble. Don't, no matter what your personal feelings are, keep it to yourself. Don't put that on LinkedIn, right? Stay neutral. So you need to be careful not to do that, but use the LinkedIn to raise your profile, right? You might have attended a seminar and you could put that and saying, attended the seminar, this was great. And others will then and then they see you. And what happens is because people will like it or comment, your post keeps coming up. And there you're raising your profile that way. So that's your visibility to the recruiters. Does that make sense? Everybody okay with that? And reading between the lines, you know what I mean by reading between the lines? When you're when you get a job description and you're applying for a job, what do we mean by reading between the lines? Because people don't always give you, or recruiters don't always tell you everything. You are, and I'm sure you all do it, but you're expected to do research. So what they tell you on the job description may not be everything. And what they do is they check from your resume or from your cover letter whether you've done research about it. Because in your cover letter, you could say, and I understand that you are also, you have got the sustainable factor of 8 and how your organization is meeting that sustainable factor, etc. Stuff like that. Say, I did the research and this is something I have, I agree with, or I have an affinity with, or I can relate to. Stuff like that is important. That's when I say read between the lines. Don't just take everything that's on there. Do extra research and make sure that comes up in your cover letter. Is everybody okay with that? Any questions? So I'll go through this quickly. Remember the language and tone, professional, not colloquial. You don't write as you speak, you write as you write. The language, make sure that you know the language that you're using often. Now, this is where, because I know we've got quite a few of you from all over, translation can cause a problem. So when you're looking at something, you might think, right, this is written in English. You're trying to translate it into, say, Hindi, Gujarati, Arabic, whatever, right? Japanese, Chinese. Direct translation may completely throw it off. So when you do translate, make sure that you know that translation makes sense. Direct translations often don't make sense. So try and make sure, use any, there's loads of apps around that can then do that say, right, what is this trying to say? Right. So, how we say things in Spanish, I speak, I'm fluent in reading and writing. I'm not so fluent in speaking and listening, but I know how to write things, and you write it a different way and it means something totally different, right? In Spanish, bear in mind that my mother tongue is Gujarati, but I speak English a lot, and obviously some other Indian languages, but that the translations can change. So beware of that. Common pitfalls. So what was I going to say about the common pitfalls? Think about the common pitfalls would be spelling mistakes, grammatical errors, dates not making sense, full stops. So punctuation, make sure they make sense, right? The commas. Don't put exclamation marks in any of your resumes because that shows a sign of aggressiveness, right? So don't put exclamation marks. Full stop will suffice. Jargon. Now, if we get taken in by jargon so much, because if you are applying internally for a role, jargon is fine because they understand it. But if you're applying externally, you need to make sure that you know what you're talking about. So if you do decide to use acronyms, it's fine, but make sure that you put what it means in full brackets with the acronym, then start using the acronym and the jargon. But at first point, make sure you've explained what that acronym is so they know when they read it, it makes sense. That way it also saves space. You don't have to keep using the full word. Don't write cliches, right? I am the, I have achieved this and what have you, etc. Cliches, just be truthful, put facts in. And like I said, be careful with colloquialism. We get taken in by colloquialism. We don't even realize that sometimes we write as we speak. So read it. And what I always do is before you send it off, and I'm sure you all do this, get someone else to read it, but not someone that's on the same level as you. When I've asked a lot of people that I've had resumes from and said, get your son or daughter to read it. Get your father or mother to read it. Get someone to read it that wouldn't even know anything about it. What do they think of it? Because if they think it makes sense, you think, well, what are they going to know? They may not be professionals, but they will give you the feedback that other professionals will overlook because they can't see it because they know what it's supposed to look like. Whereas these people look at it and thinking, oh, but does that make sense? Did you do this? Does that? So do you see what I mean? Give it to someone that's probably something totally different outside of your remit and get them to read it. You all with me so far? I know we're getting late for some of you. Achievement quantification. I think, again, this is something that you probably are okay with. List all your accomplishments, not all of them, but you can group them if you need to. What are your contributions? What have you contributed to society or to that industry? So if you have made any contribution to that industry, put it down in your resume. Again, what's the impact of that quantification? So have you grown a portfolio from 5% to 20%? That's a big impact. So when you do any quantification, does it have impact? No point in saying, oh, objective was 5%, I did 6%. What does that mean? It's not going to mean anything, right? You need to have that quantification that has an impact, and make sure that it shows how valued you are. The value should come across in your resume of how your value is important to them as an organization. Remember, people often think that when we're applying for a job in our resumes, it's just about you wanting that job and them interviewing you for that job. You might not like that job. You might come away and think, I don't actually like that job. I don't, after the interview, you might think, it's not what I really want. So don't feel fearful that if it's not the job for you, then don't think, oh, I've got to accept it. Your value is important to you, because I can guarantee you, if you go for a job that you then get it, but actually you didn't like it, you're not going to be successful at it, because you will struggle. Go for the job that you're really going to get something out of, really going to enjoy. If you enjoy something, success will follow. If you don't, whoosh. Okay? That's what I mean by value. Whoops. Oh, this is right. So on these, I think we've talked about video, so we've covered some of it. Font choices we've talked about already. Bullet points. I've said use bullet points in certain spaces, but not throughout the whole CV. All right, put some paragraphs in, but you bullet point. I'm going to come on to white space in a minute. Make sure it's easy to read. Don't start using long words that you've used from a dictionary or AI that is, well, what does this mean? Right, the recruiter needs to look at a dictionary. Video, we've talked about. Does anybody know what I mean by white space? Do you all know what I mean by white space in a resume? Spaces, yes. Extra spaces, tabs. Ma'am, you don't worry. I'm going to explain it anyway. Yeah, absolutely. It's all that. What it is, it plays a crucial role in the overall design, right? So here, if we use this as an example, you can see that this is easy to read, and you can see my 5 points there. The white space is here, right? All this. And why? Because by having that white space around, you're making these points more powerful and impactful. So it's space that isn't being used, but you're actually, because it's not being used, because you've not got everything everywhere on that screen, you're actually making the points that are on the screen more powerful, right? And they're actually coming at you, and it's easy to read. If you had a black space or you had loads of design behind, these wouldn't come out. So white space is important. Don't cram. Don't have a font that crams everything in. Don't use a font size that's tiny because you want to try and get down to 2 pages, right? You don't want someone with a magnifying glass trying to read your resume. You won't get anywhere. So that's what white space is. Use it to your advantage. You can, it doesn't need to be so cramped up. Make that space, make it easily read, make it balanced. That white space just balances it. Everybody okay with that? Any questions on that? That's what I mean by aesthetics. By the way, is there any more questions on the video? Are you comfortable with the video? If the ones that do ask for a video resume, remember it's important that when you do resume, it's like you can see me at the moment. I would sit a little far back in a video so that they can see how you're sitting. Dress smartly, right? So everything as if you're in an interview, but all you're doing is a verbal version of your written resume, and talk about what you are, what your profile is, skills and qualifications, and absolutely date it chronological order, and the most recent first, the most dated at the bottom. But that's what you can do in a video. I've only ever had to do one video resume because my role was standing in front of people and delivering training. And I did exactly that because they wanted to see how I was. What did I sound like? What did I look like? What did I, did I make an effort to dress up, etc. So that's what I mean. Any questions on that? Any specific length? I would do it for no more, maximum 5 minutes, if it takes 5 minutes. What I would do is do the resume, video resume, as you would do reading from your resume. Time it, then cut it down, time it, and then get it to the point where you're talking so confidently that it's bang, 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 as if you're giving an interview. Okay, and it's there. And remember how you sit. Sit straight. Don't kind of slouch like this. Sit straight. Smile. Your body language, your facial features all impact on that video resume. But I would do no more than 5 minutes. You think 5 minutes, only 5 minutes. It's a long time when you're doing a video, right? You don't realize. It's a long time. I do a lot of videos because just to give you an idea, what I don't think KnowledgeHut know, I'm also a voice artist. So I do a lot of voiceover recordings. And I know what, I get told, you're doing this commercial, you've got 30 seconds. And you think, oh my God, is that it? But you'd be surprised how much you get done in 30 seconds. Is it okay to make a hesitation in real life saying, Mohammed, we all do that. What I tend to do is instead of saying, just breathe, right? In your head, try and say, difficult, I know, Mohammed, but even though you think I may come over confident, sometimes I am quite scared and apprehensive. I use a pen, right? And when I'm talking, if I'm thinking, right, I'm going to struggle for the word, I just use my pen and fiddle with it. But when I say fiddle, I just use it and just stop talking. Pause rather than say, just that gives you that brain space to just allow you to breathe and think, what am I going to say next? And that's fine in a video because they'll think, So you might say, hi, I'm Mohammed. I've been working for HSBC for 20 years. And instead of saying, and you'd say 20 years. I have worked in several different areas of Canada. My best role was working in project management. But you see what I'm doing, Mohammed? Instead of saying, I'm just taking that 2-second breathe. Does that make sense? Does that help? Yep. Okay, great. What's the best size for CV? 2 pages. No, I would no more than 2 pages. Sorry, Shinhara, no more than 2. That should be a max. And like I said, it depends on how long you've been in the industry. If you've been in the industry only 10 or 15 years, 2 pages is too long. Okay, mine, like I said, it's 2.5, and 3/4 of that half page. Sorry, a quarter of that half page is my hobbies and interests. So you've really got to try and condense it. So that's where the powerful words get in, and that's why I say use AI to your advantage. They'll try and condense some of the words for you. I have a career gap of 1 year due to layoff in COVID pandemic. Should I mention that on a resume or just skip it? You can word that very differently, Pratik. And what I will do, I don't know how we'll do it, but I can kind of guide you in terms of how you can word that. So rather than saying you were laid off due to pandemic, just say the economic situation did not allow me to continue this role, something along those lines. Right. So, and people will say, yeah, COVID, you got laid off during COVID. Don't write it like that. Just say the economic situation, and with the pandemic, I changed roles, and it gave me time, time to take some time out to think what I wanted to do going forward. So what you're saying, you're turning that negative into the positive, right? So instead of saying, oh, I got laid off because of COVID, what you're saying is, yep, the economic situation was the reason that gave me the time to think about a different role. That's how you word it. Don't skip it, because they're going to ask you, what happened in here? So rather than skipping it, just say, this is what I did. And that actually makes you look better, because you're saying it gave me the time to think of a different career. I mean, how many air stewardesses, how many people in the hospitality industry lost their jobs? And they started retraining for different jobs. That's what they put on their CVs. I've just recently had to be part of a recruitment organization where you're going to laugh at this, but one of the guys was a very good, successful air hostess. It was a air steward, and he's now a lorry driver. And I got asked by a firm we're recruiting. Can you just help with? And I'm like, how is this person going to learn how to do? But you know what he did? In his time that he was laid off, he learned and got his HGV license. He's got his lorry driving license. He's got a better work-life balance. He loves it. So use it to your advantage. Don't skip it, and don't be fearful of the fact that you got the pandemic caused you to leave your job. Turn it around. I always say turn any negative into a positive, and that's by pure words. How you word it. Instead of saying I got laid off for COVID, the pandemic allowed me to think for a different career. That's it. Yeah, does that help? Okay, I will do. Thank you. So we're on, where are we? Let's quiz the, so customization, make sure the relevance of information, make sure it's appealing. Different recruiters will view information differently. So remember, customize it, tailor it. Action words, active voice, dynamic and engaging. So when you write, make sure you use action words, right? These are verbs, these are dynamic words. Things like achieved, managed, led, streamlined, resolved. Those are action words, okay? An active voice is how you would say, for example, instead of saying a team of 5 marketing professionals was managed by me, resulting in a 20% increase, the way you change that into an active voice is, I managed a team of 5 marketing professionals to increase the sales by 20%. Do you see the active? Make it dynamic and make it engaging. The summary objective here, I would say, what's the key objective? What is your qualification? What are your career goals? So make sure that comes out in your resume, right? That will be probably either in your hobbies or interests or at the beginning. This is what I intend to achieve and what I want to do. Key thing, proofread as I've said, and get someone else to read it. Eliminate all the errors and make sure your translation makes sense if you're trying to translate it into whatever language you're trying to translate into. And I've said online presence, social media, LinkedIn is important. Everybody uses things like, Facebook. I'm not on Facebook. I don't go on it. I don't want to go on it because it's, it's just something personal choice, but be careful what you put on Facebook because these people will look at that. Instagram, just be careful what goes on there, although that's probably safer. Twitter, again, I think it's called X now. Be careful what you put on there. So your social media, your connections are important. They will look at what connections you have, right? So the recruiters will look at LinkedIn and they'll look at what connections you've got. So make sure when you don't just connect to everybody that sends you a connection, what value is it going to add to your profile by connecting to that individual? Okay. And what's your output kind of thing on your online presence? And this is where I say post and repost things on LinkedIn. And I hope I finished on time. That was a quick last 5 minutes. Thank you. I hope that was useful.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.